Okay, so this is Zenless Zone Zero. I've been playing for a long time. I'm trying to reach level 36. I'm currently at Internet level 35. And so these are just my thoughts on the game so far. And so let's just talk about a few things. When it comes to the controls, I use a keyboard and mouse. Everything seems fine except for when I did try to use a controller. I couldn't get to a certain menu option. For example, uh, there was like a weird button prompt to get to certain parts of the menu, and behind these sections of the menu
Time for
there are
some
things locked
chapter.
behind it, including valuable rewards and currency. And so I pressed everything on the controller and I couldn't get it. And so it might have to do with like me using a PS5 controller on PC or DS4 Windows. But I switched back to keyboard and mouse and everything was fine. And so yeah, there was just that. And you know what? It kind of works out that I'm using a keyboard because I do play Wuthering Waves, and playing on a controller with Wuthering Waves and playing on a controller in this game, too many of the controls are slightly different, and so it kind of like would affect my ability to play both games at the same time. And so it's fine to use a keyboard and mouse for this game, but for Wuthering Waves, I use a controller. When it comes to the UI, as you can see, everything is really highly stylized and really big. And so stylistically, I kind of get what they're going for. You got this kind of urban video store and kind of mixtapes culture going on. And when you look at all this stuff, it's kind of a little bit messy. Uh, and for me, it's like when I look at this and where they go with the mixtapes and everything, it's more of a caricature than it's authentic. But I feel like for a cartoon, it kind of works to be exaggerated in that way. And as a designer, like someone who's actually like went to university and studied design and became a UX designer and everything, to me, I feel like a lot of this clutter
Touch
is
my tail.
makes it difficult to
Then
read. So in that respect, it's not readable without memorizing it. And but you will play this game eventually over time and memorize all this. But everything is just really big, and it's not well designed in what you would expect from good design to have. Uh, but you know, that's the way it is. I feel like what I just said now kind of parallels many aspects of the game, but I'll get into that more later. But basically, you just have to sink or swim there. You have to memorize everything here, and you'll have several hours to get it. And I've been playing this game since launch, and so there's just random things may continue to elude you while you are playing the game because of just how cluttered and just how everything is just weirdly embedded. And even this one section has more sections under it, so you may miss stuff. And I literally had like rewards that I didn't see. And I'm like someone who likes to clear the exclamation marks. Like I see like an exclamation mark here. Oh, I gotta clear it, get my reward. I've been doing that forever. Like my email has no unread messages, and so if you get me, uh, that's how meticulous and OCD some of us are. But some people don't give a shit, and you can see it all the time. Uh, Next, we'll get into the soundtrack. Now, I feel like the soundtrack is good, but I'm not someone who really cares about that. And in most games, I will eventually lower music in game in favor of my own music. Or if I'm like multitasking with podcasts or streams and stuff, I will just turn it off. So I feel like the songs here are good, but with my standards and the way I am with music in my own life as well, I tend to only listen and repeat music that's in the top 3% of what I like, or what is current that I still like that maybe I won't like a month later. And so I'm just really just into my own library, and because of that, like the music is fine, but it's not my jam. And for that reason, I feel like the music is good. It's objectively good. I'm just not into it personally, but that's not a big deal. Everyone has their own tastes. But what is there is good compared to like other game music where the music is probably not as good. Uh, Speaking of other audio things, voice acting is probably the strongest part about the story delivery in this game. Uh, because sometimes there are things in this game where it's fully animated cutscenes, and the animation is really good. But then there's also comic book panels where there is no animation but just comic book panels. Uh, and then sometimes there's talking heads as well, like where you just see someone's face like this, and then another person's face also facing you, and they're talking and having a conversation, and that is the way the story is being told. Now, I don't like that, but when it goes to the comic book panels and the voice acting, that really carries the story in my opinion. And so I feel like when it comes to voice acting, they're doing a very good job at telling the story. But I don't like all the ways in which the story is being told, regardless of the voice acting. But the voice acting is very good, and there's like really some intense voice acting, even on top of just like comic book panels. So these graphics, you know, I feel like the style is a strong point for this game, and there are times when it's not always detailed, uh, and it's not consistently detailed. But and yeah, you can see that like if you go to like there's another town where you can kind of look in the distance because there's like an ocean or a beach or something. You'll see that, and it it won't be as detailed. You can see the level of detail is kind of like a low poly version of a city, and then there's sometimes you're in a mission on like a in a dungeon or something, and there's like decals on the ground which are supposed to pass off as 3D objects, like a whole like aluminum siding. You expect it to be kind of 3D and wavy, but it's not. It's like an image, and it looks like an image. And so, yeah, there are issues like that where it's supposed to pass off as 3D, but it's not. And that's probably because of like a lack of bump maps, displacement maps, or just like bad level design. And that was really early on as well. That's like in the first mission. And so, that being said, I feel like the art style is consistent, and it's true to the particular style that reminds me of like stuff from Studio Trigger, mixed with kind of like Persona 4 or 5, kind of like somewhere in between. And the world is like, it's obviously some kind of like urban, slightly futuristic fantasy, but you start off with a small street here, and you can go into these instanced locations where there's other things like industrial construction sites and stuff. And then later on, you also get to go to bigger commercial areas, and there's like more of a city to explore, but not really much. It's kind of like slightly bigger. But ultimately, there's no open world here, and it's kind of hard to appreciate exploration when it's directly tied to side quests, right? Like all the things that like I just bumped into this cat just now, and that was like a side quest, and I'm happy to have explored and bumped into that, but several times you're kind of going point to point because they do give you quests, and for that reason you're not really expecting to find a random chest, although you do. And when you do find them, it feels different, like in a good way, because it's not forced. You're actually like exploring. Of course, that's more in like instance dungeons where I've noticed that, but there are like other cities where there are chests where you can open, and so I like that. I like that part of exploration, because they're severely lacking in like an open world feeling where you can just like chill and hang out. In this one, you can chill and hang out too, but it doesn't feel the same way. It feels like, how can I describe it? It's kind of like it's like a conveyor belt, or it's something that's just taking you point to point, but you don't feel attached to it yet. So that's kind of like how I feel about that. But I'll get into more of that later. Let's just talk about character design. And so, as you can see, this game has a lot of like very interesting NPCs. Like the NPCs in this game are so detailed, and well, I mean they're equal detail to the main characters, I suppose, and the main characters are very cartoony. So it's not hard to do that. But I mean, this girl's outfit did not have to be like this, but it is, and so I feel like that's a really good design for just a random NPC. It's not like they have a mushy face, or like a no face kind of person. This is like as detailed as a character's face, and so I feel like it has very good attention to detail in that respect to the character design. This game is kind of sus as hell as well, because like some of these characters, like this schoolgirl, right, and then a lot of the characters in the game that you get to control,
Time.
like this, right? This is Piper
Good
and
day,
Lucy.
Foxy.
Like this is like sus as hell, you know. This is like sus as
Huh?
hell, and they're like
To whom
underage
do I
characters,
owe
which
the pleasure?
the majority of the agents you
Touch my
get are
tail.
actually
Hey
female,
now.
and they're both dressed and posed way too like what's the word provocatively for my liking. And you know, luckily very early on I did pull
Time for some tail care.
Anton and Rena, and so I use them, and that's for my own comfort. And I did use them more up until I got Sukaku, right, and Ellen,
Touch my
and
tail.
I now I play the majority of the game with those two because they're my
Time for
strongest.
some tail care.
But I feel like even when it comes to like the main character and his sister, I like the general character design here. And honestly, the main character and his little sister are basically a one-to-one parallel between me and my sister, and so I feel that connection to them. But I feel like it's disappointing that you can't play with them. And so, you know, even if you could, they are kind of like designed in a mundane way. But in terms of the personalities, I like that part of their design. But they could have better costumes, and I don't know if you can change it or you will be able to change it. They should definitely have costumes in this game, and hopefully it's not like too expensive, or you don't have to like pull them in some highly costly way. Like if I could use the in-game currency I've been collecting, that'd be cool. But basically, when it comes to these characters here,
Touch my tail.
there are strong concepts that tie groups of these people together. And so, for example, Victoria Housekeeping, you have Rena, uh, you
Time for
have
some tail care.
Ellen, and then you also have Corin here. And then there's another character, the wolf guy, or he looks like a dog or a wolf or something. And I don't know, like, is he a wolf or is he a dog? And if he's a dog, then what's the guy selling cigarettes in this shop here? Is he a dog? Like, I don't know. But anyways, I feel like those concepts are good because they kind of like help you understand the story without telling you too much. Like
Touch
you
my
know they're
tail.
part of the same group.
And now.
And then the same is with the Bellabog guys, like Anton and what's her name? Is it Pipe? No, there's another girl over here. They have Anton and this girl. They have the same style, and they're both from Bellabog Industries, right? Or Heavy Industries. And I felt like those are very good character design concepts to have a group like that. Now, the first group you see though is the Cunning Hares, and so you have Nicole, you have Anby, and you have Billy. And I'll be honest, I don't really like their designs as a group, and it's mainly because they're kind of like a motley crew, and they kind of have irritating personalities to start with, and so I felt like early in this game they kind of thrust me into this, and I was really annoyed. And I wasn't just annoyed with them, but a lot of the early game as well, because I did find a lot of this early game really annoying and kind of like I did not really like the game early on. And then there's also another part of the character
Touch my
design, which
tail.
I'm not sure if they
And now.
are considered characters, but you have where is it? These guys over here, which are Bang Boos, and I'm not really sure what they are. Like I don't know how to describe these guys. They're kind of like robotic mascots, but they actually help you in fighting, and you can collect them as well. You actually have to pull for them, and so I feel that's kind of strange. I'm not even sure how effective they are or how consistent their effect is when they're put into that battle, but I do put the effort in trying to like select ones that are good for my characters and also select a variety that can help me like take part in the battles. And so, like I said, hard to explain, so I'm not going to bother anymore, but they're fine. And then there's also the relics and engines. Where is it? So instead of weapons and relics, you have W engines and discs. And so we get these kind of W engines here. And these are the seem to be the weapons. And then these discs are like the relics. Now, I don't like that these icons all look the same and there's only a number to identify them because these numbers are just not really helpful. You have to memorize them, that's it. All I know is 4, 5, and 6 can potentially have more base stats that you might like, and then like 1, 2, and 3 will always have HP, attack, and I think it's defense. And so mainly the ones you want to pull for uh, are 4, 5, and 6 because those are their chance you get something good with it. And then the 1, 2s, and 3s are ones like you're kind of a little bit more careless with. But then you have to care about the substats, the random stats that go under it. But anyways, these these aspects of the game, like I, they took a while to reveal themselves in game, and uh, some of them are available early, but I wasn't. I didn't feel like it was a good idea to hold from revealing all these aspects of the game for so long because, one of the things you like about this game the most is building your characters, and that's what you get attached to. Really, I feel like, and in terms of like, it's a creative aspect of the fighting that makes you feel rewarded for making good choices, and so. Uh, I'm not even sure, like when I got these early on, if it was a good idea to level them up because there's always going to be like different levels of things. And then now I am aware that I probably spent too much on uh, leveling up blues when I really should have been sticking to purples and oranges, which are 4 stars and 5 stars. But I don't know if they call them that in this game. They just kind of go by the color. But yeah, the discs are the same, and the discs are actually more scarce. Like uh, early on, I had to use the blues because that's all we had, and I feel like I had to level them up in order to get really strong characters to clear the content because I really just did not get good characters until later on. I didn't pull Ellen until like basically 2 days ago. Uh, but I have her and
Touch my tail? No.
like I have Ellen here, and these are her stats right now. Can you even see it? So these are her stats right now. Like she has attack 1500, crit 43, crit 58. But for a long time, my MVP was actually Sukaku, and it was lucky that I pulled Ellen for Sukaku because they have good synergy. But my Sukaku is basically as strong as uh, as Ellen, and in many cases, she clears content faster than her uh, because of her abilities as a support in buffing other characters, including the team and herself. When I don't put them together, Ellen actually falls behind Sukaku. Uh, but then you have other characters who may be like not as strong. But I'll get into that later on. So for
It's
several
our turn,
days
bro.
while playing this game, let's get to the story. Several days, I actually paid very close attention to the story, and I waited for it to unfold. And I later realized that none of it mattered, and it was kind of a huge waste of my time, and it was keeping me from enjoying the other parts of the gameplay. And after I kind of sat down and realized, it's like, why am I listening to this? I basically just started skipping everything, and I enjoyed the game more. So that's the first thing I learned to do was to skip the story, because if you're just sitting there carefully listening to the story, and I understand some people probably have to listen to the story, then I can understand why it's one of the things that are keeping you from enjoying the game. And you know, I feel like the truth is the assumptions I make and the stories I build up in my head are better than what they give you in terms of like they give you this exposition and they overdo it, and the dialogue is so long and tedious, and some of it's like not even a funny joke but it's trying to be funny, and it's not funny, it's just wasting your time. And so to me that's all basically filler. And if game developers can't be bothered to animate something as well, or kind of leak the story through a side content, which would be better, and they include a skip button, it's just I feel like it's safe to say it's not worth my time, and it's fair for me to skip it as well. What I think the developers don't get is that, and I'm talking generally about Hoyo as well, but what I think they don't get is that you can't tell everything all at once and assume that it like maybe softens the blow of you having to learn about it, like the story world on your own, or that you can't learn it on your own. Because to be honest, if you keep front loading too much dialogue and too much information, there's never going to be any end to it. And then like I know that like people who are writing scenarios and writers who are writing dialogue, they feel they have to be fair as well, right? So they're not just going to like write 10 paragraphs for this girl and then for another character not do that much. And so you tend to just create a pattern where you're always just front loading way too much information, when really the player is not here to learn about the characters. They're really not. They're just here to complete tasks and fight bad guys, because the point of this game is a fighting game, right? And so we don't need to understand all the unique concepts of the world because it's all just made up and it's BS, to be honest. Like you make a new one up for every single game you make and it's BS. I don't care. What's the same is that I'm fighting bad guys, and that's what I need to know. Like what's the task? Don't make me don't include me in selecting random things for the task when there's no real choice, when it's just the illusion of choice too. Like, for example, in Wuthering Waves, they're like, what do the frontline assault guys do? And they gave me three choices, and one of them was assaulting from the front, and the other one was not assaulting from the front. It's like, why would you even give me that choice? It's just wasting my time, and it's not worth my time. And so, anyways, what really started to help me enjoy and attach to the story more is actually in this section here where you can DM characters. And I didn't even know this was here. There's an exclamation mark here that didn't show up here. But I went here and I'm like, oh, I can send 3 messages per refresh. And I'm not sure what refresh it was, it daily or is it weekly? I don't remember. Because I just really just recently discovered it. But when I finally started DMing these characters, and then I started to have small hangout sessions with them, and so those small tidbits, even if I was skipped the parts where they're ready to do heavy dialogue with just floating faces, this gave me more of a connection to the characters than actually having them thrust upon me in the main story missions, or having to go to like the video archive in my like den here, and then having to like acquire and play through several chapters of their story in these long-term missions here in this video archive here. And so honestly, I didn't like the video archive thing and having to play through several chapters of characters who I really even haven't met yet, or if I did meet them, I mean, why am I learning about them in this way? What's the point? I'm not I'm not supposed to be learning this much about people who are my clients anyways. But anyways, after the DMs, I did notice something else is that after the DMs and after that little like hangouts and like dates and stuff, the characters were just appearing in my world on their own, and they would bring like quests as well sometimes, or bring progress to quests. And so I thought that was kind of cool because at that point like sixth, this whole place here is called Sixth Street, right? And what it really is kind of like this conveyor belt, like I said, from going from quest marker to quest marker. But once characters from my DMs were appearing in this place just randomly and just ready to talk, this place actually became home base to me. And so I had more of a connection to this world than I did before. And I thought that was cool. It reminded me of Suikoden, where you recruit characters and they go to your home base and they're there. That's what I would like to see more of. That's what I like about this game is acquiring the characters and having their strength at my side so I can fight and complete those missions. So in a way, having these DMs going on these small kind of like interactions with them and kind of it's actually slowing down the storytelling because I'm spending more time doing that than I would if I was just reading a whole chunk of text or having them speak it to me. Slowing down the storytelling in this way actually made it feel like there was less of it, which is a good thing because it's easier to consume in that way. And also, I have a personal connection because I'm building that story with them. I don't need to know their background. If they want to reveal it to me over time, we can do that in a very like there has to be another way to do it. I've played so many games where it's done so much better. I don't need to have it all dropped upon me in such a heavy way that I feel like skipping it. And so, to me, what's important is who people are now. I'm not going to judge them by their past. And so, let's get past the story now. And so, mainly, let's get to I think this is the gameplay section. So, there are several things that make up the actual gameplay in Zenless Zone Zero. And to me, it all boils down to questing. Like, fundamentally, that's what it is. Like, questing is like both what you're doing and where you eventually get to. And when you don't really know where you're going, you do know that when you get there, you'll have another place to go to and then get to again. And so it's kind of like this self looping thing. And then you just repeat it. That said, there are different forms of questing, including, fighting, exploring, fetching, and then also there's this TV system that everyone doesn't like. And I don't like it either. But all these questing systems, they present their own challenges and they offer rewards for them, but fighting is the most important one. And the reason is because fighting is where you have both freedom and both uncertainty. And so you can make choices, but the outcome is not completely in your control, and so it's the part that feels less like a treadmill, right? Hold on, where am I going? And so fighting is the place where you can acquire resources and also characters, and you can configure and develop them so you can complete your missions, right? And so you have the freedom to do that. You're making choices, and you have a sense of reward when your choices give you success. And so that's why fighting is the main component of this entire game. And fighting, it kind of starts off easy, and there are hints early on that there's going to be deeper mechanics, but these mechanics are presented to you in a way that feels like it's on autoplay, and so at first you don't really notice it, uh, and but there are deeper things that become more involved later. But it's not until later that becomes more kind of difficult, really. But to me, the fighting in this game, it feels very smooth, but it's not always satisfying. And what I mean is that I differentiate between the good feeling of the battle system and also the satisfaction I get of overcoming a good fight challenge. And so, in that respect, I feel like satisfying fights have interesting challenges to overcome or creative problems to solve. For example, so I have my main characters now are basically
Jefferson's out
Ellen
there.
and Sukaku, right? And I have them built almost equally, as you guys can see, like early on, like except for the crit rate, they basically have the same stats, and my Sukaku smacks like crazy, right? And so they're built almost equally. But if you look at like my Anton, who I was using before I got those other characters, uh, you know, his attack only goes up to 1200, not 1500, right? And I have like a lot of development on him, the same amount, and I even gave him a 5-star weapon here. But I'll get into that. He doesn't have the stats to match up. I give him this 5-star weapon. Before I'm using his drill rig, which is supposed to be the best for him, but I give him this weapon. And this is Nakamata's signature weapon, right? It's basically her main engine. And I randomly acquired it instead of getting a good character off the main banner. I wish I got a main character, like a 5-star character, but I didn't. But I got this weapon, and I use it on Anton now. And now Anton has the ability to use this perk, which is that the equipper's damage increases by 25% when hitting the enemy from behind. Now, suddenly, his damage is going to be 25% more, which is more than the difference between him and the other characters that I use. And so, uh, he can use that perk, and now he's on not just equal footing but better footing. And so that is a creative decision, a freedom that I have to choose in the fighting system, where now I can fire off his ultimate when the enemy is staggered. I can go behind him and use that ultimate, and then deal 25% more damage, right? And if Anton he can fire if he can do significantly more damage, then obviously I feel good about that. That's my reward, is the good feeling I get from making that choice and then putting it into action and executing it properly. It's that freedom in preparing and then using the characters that gives me satisfaction. Uh, but if there is no freedom like that, then we're just on autopilot and there's no customization. And early on, it may feel like that because they don't even give you like a lot of good stuff early on. And so something that was interesting, speaking of early on in the fighting system, is that I'd constantly fall asleep while fighting in this game. And it would just be like, it wasn't just early on either, because even now the fight's more difficult, and because of just the smooth operation, I feel like I'm being lulled to sleep all the time. And so I'll wake up in the middle of an even difficult fight where I'm dying. And so I don't know why that's happening, but it is happening, and it happens early on. And I can guess that that makes people feel very bored with the fighting system early on, which is really the reward of the game. It's the main thing that you have fun with, and fighting and overcoming that is the reward of the game. And so it's kind of like, I feel like there's aspects to the fighting that could be tweaked, because there is a sense of downtime, and even after like finishing off one bad guy, like your brain could just switch off, and I'll just be like asleep at beating one bad guy, but I'll be like being attacked from behind, and I'll wake up and I'm like, oh, I'm still being attacked. And I don't know. That's like something that's I feel like it's too relaxing. The battle is too smooth, and I don't know if it's like I'm not saying this as in I want them to nerf it. I'm just saying that that's just a consequence of like uh, making the battle system kind of too automatic, too on rails, you know. And so like if I'm riding like a Greyhound or if I'm on the subway, I have a bad habit of falling asleep, right? But that's the same thing as when the fight is too predictable or when I don't really have to think. And so the fighting in this game has a mechanic called chain attacks, where in addition to like stunning and dodging and countering and stuff, these chain attacks you can use them. And sometimes I find like you're attacking with one guy, and then it says left or right click, or space or the other button, and then you'll switch to another character, and they'll suddenly start doing more damage, and they'll have more energy and be doing things a lot more impressively. And so before you do that, the battle's kind of slow, not as good. But it's sometimes frustrating when those chain attacks just start, and then you had a plan, such as like when you're going to use your ultimate, and the on-screen prompt just derails it. And not, in fact, it switches you to another character, and maybe you press your ultimate, and now you're using the wrong character to do the ultimate. Uh, and sometimes you press the right button, but you don't go to the right character. And so I don't understand what that is about. Maybe it has to do with spacebar or another button that's kind of like automatic. I'm automatically pressing by accident. But I feel like there should be something in that system that is a little bit more. I don't know. I don't even know how to do because this is like a game design problem, right? Like how are people not feeling like they're in control? I don't know. It doesn't feel great, and it's kind of forced. But anyways, even when I press the right prompt, yeah, it seems to it seems to select the wrong character. That's what I feel like. And you know, uh, sometimes when you're switching characters in these chain attacks, the character you were using, which is your main character, they get left on the battlefield. So I'm sometimes using Sukaku, and the game forces me to switch, and then she's still in the battlefield, and then she takes a huge hit, and she's like one of my strongest characters. I need her to be able to dodge and stuff, but when you leave her on the battlefield and she's not invulnerable, I feel that's kind of weird. Like she should be invulnerable, and I've noticed that I would switch out of her, and she would just be dying. And she didn't, and I didn't take the hit. She was just there while I'm on my arena attacking from a distance, and she's still there doing her thing, and she's getting killed, and I don't understand why that's a thing. Like I feel like she should have some invulnerability. And so yeah, switching to the wrong characters is annoying. I guess I could bring less characters onto the battlefield, but then other characters are kind of useful too as meat shields, as you can see when you're switching out, and they don't exactly switch out. But basically, when you're fighting, you do have to build up to these chain attacks and these special moves, and the fight can feel really slow when you're doing that. I found myself wishing certain attacks were actually on a cooldown, like they are in other games. Like skill moves are usually on a cooldown, and for a long time I didn't even realize that I had special attacks that I could use because they weren't charged up. And then eventually I got like spinners like Piper and Sukaku, and I realized they were able to use their special attacks without them being charged, and they're called X special attacks, right? And maybe I should have read the manual, but who's going to do that? I'm a skipper. Uh, but overall, I do like the fighting portion of the game a lot. And what I really want from it is that I want creative enemies with multiple ways to defeat them. Uh, the tendency in this game is really just to find a sweet spot between when you're mashing and when you're playing expertly. Uh, and so that's what I feel. But a more creative fighting system where it's not even hard. Like I don't even want it to be hard, right? I just want it to be like, oh, step on this plate when you're fighting the bad guy, or if I can leave a character to step on a plate, and then suddenly I have only two characters, and I'm like, oh, now I have to fight with these guys. Who am I going to leave behind? That would be a cool kind of like small challenge to add to just a battle. It doesn't have to be too difficult. It's just something that's interesting that keeps you on your toes. Uh, but yeah, that is the fighting system. Now, in addition to the fighting system, there is just general exploration. As you see, I'm in a commercial area, and uh, I feel like exploring is lacking in this game, mainly because it's not a real open world. There's just kind of like me going to instanced city sections, uh, place to place, and it's just all that stuff is just there to slowly progress on different quests and to meet characters, and just for some reason you have to meet people to talk to them, and then you go and they're just talking heads anyways. Like, I feel like that stuff could just be animated, and so you don't have to go there just to talk to them. But I wouldn't mind if it was an open world, but because it's not an open world, it's not. There's no real point to it. Uh, Also, one part about just questing is not just having an open world which feels free, but even if it's a closed world like this, you want to have a sense of freedom. And so I want to freely quest, but then there's this daytime cycle here. And so there's morning, afternoon, and evening, and right now we're in the evening, see by this marker. And some things you can only do during certain times of the day. And what's weird is that even if I just do this one exploration quest here, this is not this can only be done in the room, but sometimes there's a city quest where you can actually do it in the city. Sometimes you do those things and then it moves you to midnight, and so it progresses time just by doing these small little tasks. And I feel like that impedes the ability to, if I just wanted to clear a whole bunch of quests in one area, that should be something that I'm able to do. And then but then it progresses the day cycle, and then you know then I can't. And so and then you get to midnight, and then the character needs to sleep as well, and so that's it. And the only place that doesn't seem to be a problem is in this place across the street here. Where is it? The HIA, which is kind of like a place where you can get upgrade materials by doing fighting challenges, like virtual reality fighting. And so those are one of the ways which you get resources to develop your characters. But anyways, that's how I feel about exploration. I feel like I want more freedom, but then it's already built into the game with a day and night cycle and morning, noon, and midnight. But it would be nice to have way more freedom to just clear things, because sometimes we just want to get it out of the way. The stuff is not enjoyable; it's a chore, and so I understand you get a reward for doing these things, but at the same time, it isn't fun, right? And another mechanic in this game that's not fun is the whole TV thing, right? So in this game, something that happens is that there's like this section of this game called TV, and it's this weird abstract board game that's used in actual place of gameplay. And so imagine it's like some form of Dungeons and Dragons, except all the floor tiles are televisions, and then your characters are just bangboos, right? Or some kind of neon sign version of a bangboo. And so, let's say you're playing this quest about cracking a safe. Well, instead of going inside this building and then, progressing through a scripted quest, instead you're on a tile of television and you have to move to the next tile. Whoop, now you're in the bank. Uh, and then you move to the next tile. What? Now you're holding up this guy at the bank. Oh, there's an alley here. Okay, I didn't even notice that. So, and then that is what it's like. You're playing on a board game instead of playing the game, and it's not just like it's not just that. There's a fast forward mode, but and it would be worse if it didn't have the fast forward mode. And so, at that point, it's not just that this is a board game, but there's actually like a slowness to it. There's like a animations are way too thorough, dialogue is way too long, and the game loses its responsiveness when you're playing TV as well. There's like it's just I don't know if it's like because of the over animation, but there's just like these weird points during TV that just feel like you're drudging through it, and it doesn't feel good, and so you just gotta wait for these weird bang boos to move across the game board, and every now and then, instead of seeing someone you're supposed to rescue, they look like a friggin' ghost from The Ring or Poltergeist because they're coming out of a TV. And you just kind of want TV to end as soon as possible because it's just equally a horror movie, and it's not fun. I don't like it, and I've actually discovered that TV gets worse. There's like this quest where you have to play in TV mode, but it's tower defense, and I hate tower defense. Like, to me, tower defense is really tedious. I hate it. I don't like games with tower defense in it. It's time wasting. If I wanted to, I would play tower defense, but I don't. And the thing about these TV modes is that you feel like if you don't beat it properly, you'll have to redo it, and then you have to endure the pain of TV for much longer. And to me, it's just extremely like high maintenance to have to go through it. And there's even like this one part where it was like a Pokemon battle, and it seemed like it would be fun, but it was kind of more of a puzzle than actually like Pokemon battle, because there was only like a few limited choices you could make, and then if you failed, then the game just kind of gave you more resources to win it. And in that respect, then you really sense like, oh, they're just like killing time, and it was just a waste of time, you know, because you would have eventually won it anyway, because they just keep giving you more buffs. And so why am I going through it? And it's not even like you don't get to see a real Pokemon battle. You're not cheering on your own Bangbus. They're like random Bangbus they gave you. And so that's just like something annoying. It's not like the cool Pokemon event they had in Honkai Star Rail. But anyways, anytime I see this TV mode, I really just don't feel like I'm even playing a game. I feel like it's just slowing me down to run out the clock, like it's some kind of like paid escort you made the mistake of taking out to lunch, and then now she's just chewing her food very slowly as possible before you actually get to the good part, which is the fighting section. Now, I don't know if paid escorts will fight with you. That was just an example that I have no personal experience in. Anyways, that is basically the mechanics of the game, just fighting, exploring, and TV. And I hate TV and I don't want to see it anymore. And so let's just close my thoughts on all of this. So I did feel bad playing this game for a lot of the early parts because it's slow, annoying, and tedious in several sections of it. And it was hard to get used to the menus as well, and I wasn't like sure where anything was, and I wasn't sure what I was like hanging on to my currencies for, but I did just to be safe. And so anyone could just play this game and just completely like wipe themselves out early on and then be handicapped through a huge section of the game if they didn't know what they were doing. But yeah, the fighting early on seemed easy as well. TV, it was bad and only seemed to get worse as the game progressed. The story is, in my opinion, boring. I don't like it. It's delivered not in a good way. The pulls scarce as hell. I didn't even really get Ellen until like maybe what was it, 3 days ago or 2 days ago, and that's why my Sukaku is actually so cracked because uh, as soon as I started as soon as I started like using her, and here's the thing, I have all her cinemas, so she's maxed, right, and then she's just really super strong, and so I mean that's I had to use her, and I finally got Ellen, and I had to play the game basically without uh, good characters for a long time. I used Anton, and actually Piper was the first changer for me because she was actually the ones who helped me clear a lot of content. And then eventually I got Rena, and Rena's okay, but she's kind of like this weird kind of addition to the roster. She fights ranged, and I feel like I have trouble fighting with her at close range because I feel like she's more vulnerable. But if you asked me early on whether I'd continue to play the game while I was going through these frustrations, I would have leaned heavily towards no. But the best parts about this game are its like graphics, and the fighting and the building the characters you do get. Right, building the characters is your investment into the game. Right, that's what gives you a reward, and then unlocking things to build your characters with. That kind of like some of those things took a long time to be revealed, like
Touch
the
my tail. Did you call me?
discs. Discs, right? I did get discs from what was it, a pre-registration event. But anyways, uh, I did this pre-registration event where I got a whole bunch of Bangbu coupons. I got a purple rarity W engine, which my Rena is actually using, and then I got some discs, but I didn't really know what they were early on. I didn't know what benefit they were. I didn't know if I should upgrade them or if they were worth it, and so I didn't understand a lot of what I was doing. And I feel like the game was designed to make you kind of confused because of just the weird interface and how it didn't show you everything, and then also, and when I say weird interface, I mean the messy interface, obviously, where information is just in stacks of like menus. Like it's kind of annoying when you like complete a quest and then you got to go through all these menus to just claim all, when really there should just be one claim all button before you get to any section. Or it should automatically claim all through all the sections, because you don't really need to know which achievement you just got because there's so many of them. But yeah, if you asked me early on what score I gave this game, I would be like 4 or 5, because I didn't really like it that much, and I feel like that's even generous, to be honest. Because I really did feel that badly about playing this game. But now that I'm pretty far into it and I've built up my roster, and I have a small sense of attachment to this roster as well,
Time
right?
for some
Because
self-care.
now that I'm using these characters so long and they're carrying me through so much endgame stuff
Touch my tail.
that I wouldn't be able to like beat with my base characters. Now that I have that attachment, I'm happy about using them, and I want to see what else they can complete as they continue to develop them. The Hollow Zero portion of this game was just like part of the end game, along with the hunts, and I can't remember the names of all the 4 modes. Like there's a cleanup as well. Those things are kind of pretty fun, and I wouldn't be able to do them early on, but now that I'm just demolishing them with like just these basic characters, and I don't even need to match the elements when I'm using Ellen and Tsukaku. But yeah, I'm just like able to demolish it, and I feel happy about that, and that's a reward as well, right? Just being able to customize and get through content that you're not equipped for, but you can be equipped for them if you're smart. And so I still hate TV. I still hate that, and I feel like the battling will become more creative and fun as time gets on as well. But so far, I'm worried that it's just going to make like bad guys just harder to kill in terms of just being sponge, taking more damage. Like I don't know, like attack. I don't know sponges. I'm not sure the terminology is. They're just too thick. They're just like when you hit them, you don't do any damage. I'm worried that that may be how they'll make it more hard. And I don't like that because early on I only had Anton, and I was trying to kill this dog, and it's the first time I didn't get 3 stars after completing a mission. I was like, why is this guy taking so long? I'm like a minute too slow every single time, and it's because I didn't have the right element. And I'm not even sure if it was Anton, it may be another one, because I was using Corin early on as well.
It's our turn, bro.
But anyways, those negatives, those negatives and all the things that felt like you were wasting your time, they're still there in the game. They didn't go away with me continuing to play the game and with me enjoying other aspects of the game. Those things are still there, and all that stuff is still annoying, and it's hard to trudge through it, and it's like a swamp. And you feel like you finally get to the other edge of the swamp. And that's where I feel like I'm kind of at. I'm close to the edge of the swamp, because now I have better characters, and now there's less story to go through. Like there's like less quests, and I'm just kind of, it feels more linear now than kind of random, because before there was just so much going on. And so I kind of feel like I'm on the other side, but I still feel like the game is really disorganized, and sometimes it's high maintenance, right? And I feel like there is more swamp coming, and like there's more TV that's going to be in between my fighting missions, and that's kind of annoying, right? And so my enjoyment of the fighting system, it doesn't offset the negativity about those other things. And I do feel like if they don't remove TV or minimize it to something really short, like if I'm using a vending machine, the devs are too lazy to draw up a vending machine mini game, and they use TV instead. Like, I mean, I feel like if you just do small things with TV, that's fine. But doing big things that are tedious and time consuming, I don't like it. It's just slow and annoying. Uh, I don't like it. Just stop using it. And also, if the storytelling, it still relies on too much of just thrusting you into chunks of writer's ego in the form of like things like videotapes, I feel like that's gonna make me not enjoy the game as well. I'd rather just include my character in like small little things that slowly add up to building the story. And if it doesn't, I'll quit it like I quit Honkai Star Rail, right? And I quit Honkai Star Rail for 2 reasons. One, it doesn't have a skip button, and two, there's a lot of weird kind of mini games that have nothing to do with the turn-based battle, and I just don't like the weird side stuff. And I didn't like that they put PvP in the last mini game. I just not interested in all these things where the currency you want is locked behind. And so I'm just like, I'm just gonna stop putting money into this game. I'm enjoying Wuthering Waves. I want to invest in that game instead. And so right now, thank God for Wuthering Waves, because I'm really enjoying it. I like that all their things are kind of more organized and it feels relevant. Even like the side quests and stuff, they're all like relevant to the actual story. I don't want to these weird side missions where I'm playing some version of a Android game like Flappy Bird. Like I don't want that. I want platforming, which is part of the game mechanics. This game doesn't have jump, by the way. You can't jump in this game, so that's not going to be a part of this game. But I want things relevant to the game and the game's mechanics. And so at this point, even though I said earlier on I would give this game a 4 or 5, I'm gonna give this game right now a 6.7, like a high 6.7. It's pretty much a 7, right? Because if you don't really believe in fractions or fractional decimal points or whatever, so it's 6.7 out of 10, and that's on the feels meter. I don't want to like get into the details about why it doesn't feel like that. That's how I feel about it. And even though I enjoy the combat way more than I did earlier on, I still have a sense of I'm not eager to play this game. Like I'm not, I don't feel like logging in today, but I will just to use my stamina and further develop these characters. And then when I do quests after the daily refresh, then I'll maybe see how my characters develop, and I'll enjoy if they can be stronger or not. And if they can't, then it'll just be another day of just grinding. But I am aware that there are other games that I do actually enjoy, and I feel like loading up and playing them, except they just don't have the content, right? Like it's on. You're waiting for the next patch, right? Like that's how a lot of gacha games are, and I really feel like I wish there was a game that you could play because when I was playing Final Fantasy 14, I paid a monthly subscription, and there was always something to do, and I could just play that game, and then, like it would almost ruin my life. That's why I had to quit. I quit after Endwalker, but it almost ruined my life. But I do wish I had a game I could just play for a longer period and not feel bad about putting down. Whereas this one, I can log in for 10 minutes, and then I'm like, hey, what happened to all that game? It's not really a game now. Now it's just an obligation, isn't it? And so I get that sense from this game, which is that one, I don't really want to load up as much as other games where I do want to load up and kind of enjoy it more because it's like open world games and stuff like that. Also, I feel like if my characters get power crept, or I see signs where new characters are going to define newer content, and if you don't keep up with the Joneses, then you won't be able to properly clear content and get the currency and all that other stuff. Like I feel like I'm just not going to bother continuing if they do that as well. Like I don't like I got Firefly and Hawkeye Star Rail, but I still quit because I was just like I don't really want to do this. I mean I missed out on a Sparkle one time, and I feel like that crippled my main character that I do use, which was uh, in My Bitter Lune, and I was like, I didn't feel that good about it. And so I just want to have characters that I can upgrade, and if I fully upgrade them and I can still use them in new content, that would be cool. But here's the thing: I want to keep collecting characters and upgrading because that's the joy of the game. The joy of the game is not all this other stuff where beating the challenges and getting the currency. Not really. I want to do that, but really I just want to focus on the next character and upgrade them, and focus on the next character and upgrade them, and I want to do that. But like the whole like thing where if I miss a character or if I don't have the currency for it, then I can't get the next one, and then I can't participate properly. Like that would bother me a lot. And so if the game significantly improves after this, I would consider monthly pass, battle pass. Like that's something I can do. But I feel like this game came out at a weird time. It has strong competition. A lot of people didn't have the patience to play early, well, get through that early trudging, and that's like a fair point to be honest. Like if you want to quit game early because there's nothing there, to be honest, even if you feel better at the end, I mean that basically just means you're in the end game, and then you can play for 10 minutes a day, right? And there's really just like, why did you go through that for this? Because you can go through anything for that, and I don't know. If you wanted to quit early on, I think that's fine, unless they remove the TV. If the TV's still there, I probably won't play. But anyways, I don't want to spread myself too thin either. I am playing Wuthering Waves right now, and I enjoy that game. Kind of like I don't have any issues with it, and so I guess that's it. So that was my coverage of this game. I don't know how long. How long have I been? Oh, I've been here for like an hour. Okay, I didn't expect to talk that much about it. But anyways, that's it, and I'll see you guys. I'm not gonna cover this game on my channel, and the main reason is because I started skipping the story, and then I was like, I can't go through the story. I only cover story on this channel for my own record keeping, and so I don't want to play this game just casually, and I don't stream because I don't have a kind of schedule. But anyways, that's it.